Hi everyone, Diane here, welcome to my studio. Today we're going to be painting in my Viviva sketchbook, and I'm going to be using the Viviva Colorsheets and a Kuretake water brush. And we're going to be painting some roses. The water brush is really good for painting roses because you can get a nice C shape. So after we've done the roses, we'll do some abstract flowers. Okay, so let's get started. Picking up some pigment on the brush and basically drawing lots of little concentric C shapes where you come in with the brush, press down hard and lift up and overlap them slightly, leaving a little space between each layer of petals until you've built up something that looks something like a rose. And now I'm changing my color from a sort of peachy color to a pink, and doing exactly the same thing. And if you just watch what I'm doing, you can see pressure goes down to make the broader parts, and then you lift up again to make the lighter part. And you can, if you want to give a shadow area, just come back in with a little bit more pigment and drop it into the petals so that it darkens in certain parts of the petal. I'm going to have a go at doing a bud here. I'm not very good at doing buds, and I'm just picking up a little bit of extra pigment there that I've put a little bit too much in the center of that rose, and I'm doing a bud. But and if it doesn't work out, you can always paint over the top of whatever it is that you've done. But don't be too hasty to do that, because you never know. When it's dry, it might look completely different. Now let's put another sort of dark peachy, orangey one down here. And this is just a warm-up, You can just do this kind of thing when you don't know what to paint. Just paint some roses. They're very forgiving. They don't ask for a lot. They're not complicated. Not like we are. And here's a nice red one. That'd be nice for Valentine's, wouldn't it? A nice bunch of roses. And you can do some of them a little bit more from one side, like this one, rather than top down. And I'm just looking for a slightly different color here. I'm sorry you can't quite see the color sheets very easily there, but I picked up some nice bright yellow there as a contrast. And we'll do the same thing again. And another peachy colored one. Once you get into the flow of this, it's not that difficult. I'm not happy with that bud, so I'm going to paint over it and turn it into a flower, into a rose, full-blown rose. Perhaps one that's going a little bit past its prime, so it's a little bit blurry. And put another one here. And when we've got enough, we will start thinking about stems and leaves. Put one down here. The key thing here is making sure you leave spaces between the petals. That's what actually makes it look more like a rose. If you can bring yourself to leaving spaces between the petals. I picked up some sap green, and I'm going to paint in some leaves, and I'm going to keep them very simple. Plenty of water. And one of the things with the water brush is that when you're using it, you don't have to keep dipping, obviously. You don't have to keep dipping your brush into the water. So you just press down a little bit and squeeze a little bit on the barrel of the brush. If you haven't tried one of these brush pens yet, or water brushes, or whatever they want to be called, water brush, I suppose, give it a go. They're not very expensive, and they are quite fun. They're actually slightly different experience. They're really good for traveling. So you don't need to carry water with you if you're, sitting at the beach painting the waves and everything. You can just whip out your water brush. Put another one over here. And this water brush is nice because it has a nice brush on it, and it's got a nice point. And so you're not really sacrificing any details or anything like that. It actually does the job of any other brush, really. They're quite remarkable. I was quite surprised when I tried this out. And put a nice little pink one over here, nice and delicate. Maybe one more pink one up the top here to fill up that space. And I think we're probably about done now with this one. So we'll go to leaves, just splash in a few leaves here and there, I think. So let's pick up a bit more sap green. When you're using the colour sheets, you tend not to bother too much about mixing paints. You tend to use them more kind of neat from the sheets. But there's some nice bright colours, some nice colours in those sets. If you want to give them a try, they're not very expensive. Just go to Viviva's website. The link is in the description below, and you get an extra discount from us if you go there and order them that way. They also have the little cork palettes with the paints in all in one layer, so you can see them all at once, which is quite nice. I like that system. Perhaps even better than the sheets, but it's a matter of taste, really. So there we are, Page of Roses. I hope you enjoyed that. And now we will carry straight on from there, and we'll construct ourselves a nice sheet of completely abstract blossoms. And I'm going to use the bright colours, the yellows, the oranges, and the reds from the Viviva sheets, and just have a bit of fun here, not worrying about making them look like anything specific. This is the kind of design that when you've done it, you might feel that you want to come in with a Tombow pen or something like that, fine liner of some sort, or an ink pen of some sort, and outline the flowers and leaves and give them a little bit more punch. But you don't have to do that by any means. You can just enjoy the pure colour of these paints. They are a bit different from ordinary watercolor. I think they're made with a kind of dye rather than pigment, so they're much cleaner and brighter. I can't say whether they would be 100% fade proof, but so many of us these days, the way we keep our work is by photographing it and putting it on the computer. And computer images don't fade, so we don't really need to worry too much about that, as long as you're not going to be hanging your picture in the sunshine, where it probably would fade no matter what it was, especially if you live in a sunny climate, no matter what paints you use. They always say, even people like Winsor & Newton always say, don't hang your painting in direct sunlight if you don't want it to fade. And when you do this, you can just use, any colours, any way you like. It's just a way of relaxing. It's just a way of finding, a little bit of inner peace. Take your mind off all your troubles for a few minutes. We need it, don't we? It's a very nice yellow. Yellow is one of those colours, if it's too acidic and too sort of greenish, it can be a little bit uncomfortable, but this yellow is nice and warm. It's a lovely, beautiful, shiny, sunny, sunshiny daffodil yellow colour. So that's lovely to use. It goes really well with the oranges and the reds. These colours also, they don't fade very much when they dry. You know how a lot of watercolours, when you put them on the paper, they're lovely and bright while they're wet, but then the minute they're dry, they kind of go dull and lose a bit of their intensity. Well, these Viviva ones are quite nice. They don't do that as much as some paints do. I'm determined I'm going to cover the whole of this sheet of paper with these flowers, so and just keeping on going. But if you wanted to just paint a little spray like that, put in the corner of a page, I don't know if you're doing a junk journal or any kind of journaling, you don't have to fill the whole page. You can just put a few flowers in one corner and Bob's your uncle, you've created something special. And somebody had a good idea the other day. I remember them saying, I know it's old-fashioned to write letters, but some people still do occasionally, and you can put some flowers in the corner of the notepaper that you're using. It's a nice idea. If you have anybody that can still read in your family and doesn't talk in acronyms and emojis. By the time you've painted a page of flowers and leaves using the water brush, you will have got to grips with its characteristics for sure, and you'll have discovered what it can do and what it can't do, and you'll have decided then whether or not you're going to make it part of your equipment set. Not all water brushes are made equal. There are some manufacturers who are making ones which are not that easy to fill and they're not that easy to use. But this green one, this Kuretake one, is actually surprisingly good. Yes. And you unscrew it in order to fill it up with water. You can unscrew the barrel, take it apart, and then just immerse it in water, squeeze the barrel, and it will sort of suck up the water, and then Bob's your uncle again. He's busy, is Uncle Bob. So that's, and some people fill them up using a syringe or something, but you don't need to do that. That's too fiddly by far. You just stick it in a bucket of water and squeeze it, and it'll fill up of its own accord, no problem. Just screw it back together again, dry it off, and off you go. And while you're doing this, you can think about anything else that you want to think about. You can think about where you're going to go for your next holidays. A bit like being in the hairdresser. You know how it is in the hairdressers when you sit down and they start cutting your hair and they go, almost certainly, this is in England anyway, so have you had a holiday yet this year? And you go, no, I don't know if we're going to go away this year. And off you go. Next thing you know, you're telling them the story of your life. It's always like that in the hairdresser. That's why I don't go anymore. Too much life to tell the story of. But yeah, no, you can sort of go down memory lane, can't you, while you're painting this? And another thing you could do with it also, if you use a piece of paper that's not in a sketchbook, what wonderful bookmarks this would make, or a card for somebody. A beautiful page of lovely, cheerful spring flowers. You could do with a bit of spring. Some of our bulbs are coming up. We've got a few just poking their leaves above the ground. There's a few snowdrops. There's going to be some daffodils. They're coming up. I'm hoping for crocuses and a few other things. We'll see. Tulips a bit later on. They always come a bit later than the daffodils. That is if we can keep the dogs and cats off of them and the builders. We have indeed got the builders in at the moment, and they are, trampling all over everything. But they've fixed the studio roof, you'll be glad to hear. That has been repaired, and so next winter I won't have to sit here gritting my teeth and crossing my fingers and holding on to my hat in fear of the roof blowing off in the next hurricane. We should be okay, fingers crossed. They've sprayed the house and the studio with something which can't help but be toxic. It must be. They say it isn't, but I don't know. Which has got rid of all the mould, and it's looking much better. Shan't be embarrassed to take photos of it now. And yeah, there's a lot more to be done. It's amazing when you have builders in, how they eat into your day. Before you know where you are, you've made 20 cups of coffee and you know, that's the way it is. Now, if you're doing a painting like this and you're going to cover a sheet with flowers like this, don't forget to try and keep it consistent so that as you go across from one side to the other, you might sort of change the colour a little bit, but you want it to be more or less consistent so that it doesn't look like you forgot where you were going halfway over. And I think I'm managing that. I'm sort of keeping an eye, just glancing over to the left to make sure that I'm getting the ratio of red to yellow more or less the same. And I'm putting in leaves in a fairly balanced way as well. I'm not putting too much effort into the leaves and the stems. They're just really just there for the contrasting colour. You could, of course, have used brown instead of green for the leaves, and you could have given yourself a sort of autumnal tinge then. If you could use a nice burnt sienna, and that would also work, or even go as far as a burnt umber, which is a nice dark brown, or a Van Dyke brown, one of those colours. I will put links in the description below for the materials that I've used, and so you'll be able to follow that through and pop over to our Amazon shop at amazon.com/shop/Diane Antone Studio, and there's also a .ca and .co.uk shop as well for Canada and England. And if you order anything from Amazon after having visited our shop or use one of our links, then we get a small but very helpful little amount of commission from Amazon. And if you buy something from the Viviva website, similarly, we will benefit. And I think you'll get 10% discount as well if you go over there. So why not go and have a look? And yeah, so we're just coming to the end now. I'm just going over some of the flowers and giving them a little bit more depth by adding some slightly darker yellow onto the yellow ones and popping a few more bits and pieces in. And yeah, and as I said, you could come in with a fine liner or a Tombow pen or something like that and give this a whole completely different character by using it as a basis for line work. But you definitely don't have to, and if you feel like it's what you wanted to achieve, you've achieved with the brush, then, you know, call it done and move on to the next thing. Sometimes it's hard to know where to stop, and you know, I'm fiddling around here, just adding a little bit here and a little bit there, and you could go on forever until you've completely ruined it, but chances are the best thing to do is to stop and pause and let it dry and come back and say, it's done. And then we can take a look at the roses that we did earlier, and now they're all dry as well. And I'm quite pleased with those, actually. They've got quite a nice vintage look to them. So we can be happy with our afternoon's work, I think. So I think it's time probably for a cup of tea, and I'll let you go. And I will see you again soon. So I'll say bye-bye for now, and I'll leave you with a little montage of paintings which we've done recently that you can find in our back catalogue and which you might like to have a go at. So I'll say bye-bye for now and see you soon. Bye-bye, everyone.